The name Ajanta conjures in our mind a vision of mystery and beauty. Hidden in the hills of the Maharashtra plateau and encompassed by streams of the river Vaghora, the Ajanta Caves are spread out in a curve. These caves were scooped out from the heart of the rock by Buddhist monks in retreat from a busy world. They lived and prayed here, recording images on the cave walls for posterity. They abound with richness, supported by pillars, and displaying an inspired paradigm of architecture, sculpture, and painting. The Ajanta paintings became famous all over the world. They were often compared to other styles, but it soon became clear that they represented an indigenous style and a unique vision. The artists at Ajanta added extra dimensions to their work so that a sense of touch was implied and the volume of the painted figure could be conveyed to the viewer. This concern with the multidimensional aspect of their subjects resulted in the chitra, or the rounded figure, the ardha chitra, or the figure in relief, and the chitra bhasha, or a painting that approximated the features of a sculpture. Entering cave number 1, we find one of the most recognized faces of Ajanta art, the master, revealed as the Bodhisattva Vajrapani, the splendor of his delicately wrought crown, bejeweled like the first rays of the sun falling on strings of dewdrops. The fine features and sensuous mouth are also worth noticing. Painted on the back wall of this cave is the bath of Nalanda. It shows the cleansing of the king before he renounces the world. We see the opulence of the court and the grace of the courtiers. The realistic detailing includes the wet hair of Mahajanaka and the bustling activity surrounding the serene, slightly smiling protagonist who is seated in a straight-backed chair exquisitely wrought with animal figures. To the right of the entrance is the bearer of the lotus, the Bodhisattva Padmapani. Rising against a comparatively cruder montage of smaller figures and flora, the elegant figure of the Bodhisattva is beautiful to the extent of being almost feminine. Here again, the jewelry and the single lotus in his hand are breathtaking. The serene look and flowing eyebrows point to a fine artistic talent. Moving along, Cave 2, the painting of Princess Indranti captures her sitting languorously on a swing, accompanied by her maids. There is a suggestion of movement in the posture of the princess and the way she holds up her feet. In this cave, we also find the figure of the Bodhisattva. Before being born as the Buddha, the Bodhisattva dwelt in the Tushita heaven where we see him now. Flanked by other deities, we witness his decision to descend to earth as the offspring of Queen Mahamaya. His hands are in the teaching attitude. It is uncommon, especially among the Ajanta figures, to see the main subject directly facing us. Here's the famous palace scene from Cave 17. The figures in this painting indicate an artistic movement towards openly delineating the concept of pleasure, which was to become more prevalent in later ages. Notice the atmosphere of indolence and indulgence revealed in the flexible postures of these figures, and the slow reluctance with which the woman gives in to her lover. Witness the beautifully wrought pillars and profuse foliage, the opulence of the royal court, the dark prince, and his light-skinned beloved. The detailing that we find in the human figures is in some measure evident in some of the animal paintings too. For instance, the pink elephant surrounded by lotuses and holding a lotus in its mouth. There is a suggestion of grandeur and indeed magnificent movement in the stance of this animal, which is again an incarnation of the divine. Indra, the Vedic deity, descends from the clouds with a retinue of celestial musicians to observe Prince Vesantara, one of the many early incarnations of the Bodhisattva. Worthy of note is the contrast between movement and the static, and the styles of apparel and the grace of the girls. the mystical quality of the clouds and the aura of music. The Ajanta artist has, in this depiction, come of age. As the monks began to scoop caves from the 1st century AD onwards, they evolved practical ways of working in the dark. The mashal, or stick torch, was smeared with vegetable oil and used for lighting dark corners. Huge mirrors were used to reflect sunshine into the interiors, and large pails of water were effectively used to illuminate the ceiling. This is seen in the painting on the ceiling, having a wave-like feature of water reflected on rock. The inner surface of the cave walls, cut into the hard and compact volcanic trap rock, forms the carrier for the plaster on which the pigments are laid. The surface of the carrier is rough and uneven, but this unevenness serves to hold the plaster in place. The ground of the paintings is composed of mud plaster. This is a compound of water and organic matter such as vegetable fibers, paddy husk, grass and other fibrous organic material, in addition to rock grit or sand. The ground is prepared by the application of 2 coats of plaster on the carrier, evening out and then smoothing the rock surface. Finally, a thin layer of lime is applied. The artists exercised great care in laying the ground, rendering it just right for the touch of the brush. The pigments used are yellow, red, blue, white, black and green, along with their mixtures. All the pigments are mineral except for the black. Most of these pigments were sourced locally by the artists. The techniques that enhanced their quality included shading, cross-hatching, the fine use of lines and stippling, or the use of dots to add an effect. The pressure of the brush makes the line appear thick or thin to have the desired effect. Thick, wide and deep lines become forms in themselves, while thin, sharp and precise lines take a calligraphic character. Even the colors of the lines assume different shades, varying from Indian red to dark brown and black, depending on particular needs, and very often changing from color to color within a limited area. This visual effect is heightened by a bright foregrounding that makes the famous Ajanta figures stand out against their darker background. The painting on the ceilings shows power of imagination, perhaps even excelling the wall murals. The ceilings were set apart and did never carry religious motives, yet kept a bearing with the walls. Their color scheme, delineation and repetitious themes were rendered with equal craftsmanship. The Ajanta style of painting is unique. We know little of the origins and life of the artist. The master's touch is, however, evident in the paintings. It took the faith of generations and efforts of centuries to create these caves. We owe it to these unknown artists to study their works with the reverence they deserve.